Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. I'm your host, Sarah Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of 3 teenagers. I believe that your body does want to and is capable of rebuilding and healing itself regardless of what chronic disease you may have. And I'm here for you to answer your questions, bring you innovative and cutting-edge technology and health solutions to empower you and your ability to reach your optimal state of health. Today, my guest is back and one of my favorites. We will be talking about individualized nutrition, how to optimize your immune system through an anti-inflammatory diet, and staying away from the foods that are quote unquote healthy, but maybe poison for you. And I know that you really do need that strong physical foundation in order to work on your mental and spiritual growth. We're going to be talking about how energy and thoughts can even make you sick and make you healthy. And wow, I have a story for you. So if you are physically not functioning or you're at a low level, it's hard to have that mental energy to raise your frequency or vibration to heal yourself. Whether it's overcoming anxiety and depression, losing weight, or detoxing your body in the proper way, or even increasing your level of frequency in life, you need that strong physical foundation of health in order to gain the willpower to make the bigger changes in life. If you're new to following me, I help get you there. You can find my health articles, my cutting edge natural supplements, devices, and protocols at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. If you have any health issues you need my help with, you can email me directly through the website. I personally read everyone. Accelerated Health Products is the sponsor of the show. So as you support my website, I'm able to bring you more cutting edge content and guests to the show. And with that, my biggest fear is to have a client purchase thousands of dollars of supplements without any education or knowledge on what they do and then never see them again. So I realized that I need to incorporate coaching with my cleanses. And that is why I've put together the Accelerated Ascent Diet Cleanse. It includes 30 days of free group coaching. And with that, I provide much better detox cleanse. The difference with my group coaching versus anyone else is that I give you the supplements that work synergistically together for easy and quick results. My groups have been reporting easy fat loss for those stubborn pounds, increased and sustained energy and mental focus, better bowel movements, an ability to suppress the appetite so you can go out and do and think the way you want to and be productive and eat when you have time to. And when your blood sugar is low and stable and your insulin's low and stable, better sleep, less moodiness, which everyone in our households will appreciate. And at the end, we do a liver flush where you literally see the gallstones and liver stones in the toilet. It is amazing. And right now, as we're entering the fall of 2021, there's no better time to boost that immune system and to get yourself ready for what comes with fall and winter. So the free 30-day fast start coaching includes weekly Zoom calls for troubleshooting, coaching, and education, daily text check-ins, and just group obligation. And everyone is so cheering each other on and sharing their recipes. It's just a phenomenal setup. So if you're interested, leave a comment below or email me directly through the website, acceleratedhealthproducts.com. Now to the good stuff. Terry Cochran back for the 3rd time. She's the founder of the Global Sustainable Health Institute and an international thought leader in longevity. She truly changed my life over a year ago. And through decades of work, she has developed the Cochrane Method, a future-facing multi-system health and longevity model. This model examines the intersection of genetic expression due to pathogenic and environmental causes energy, and her clients' unique personal blueprint. She specializes in solutions to complex health conditions and serves many people, from people like me to world-class athletes. She also has authored the Amazon best-selling new release book, The Wildatarian Diet, Living as Nature Intended, one of my favorite books, and I recommend it to all of my people in my coaching groups and my cleanses. Terry, welcome. How are you today?
Sarah, so good to be back with you.
Gosh, I have so much to tell you, but first, I know you've been on, and I encourage everyone to listen to our first two interviews, but why don't you just give us a short little snippet of who you are and what you do?
All right. So thank you so much for having me back. We have so much fun together on air. And I am I'm a disruptor in the healthcare space, truly. My personalized model for what is really precision health really seeks to understand the why behind what is causing our symptomology based on genetic expression through the four portals of the Cochrane method: pathogenic, environmental, emotional, which gets to the frequency at which we live, and even a physical impact. And I came to this world as a result of my son's healthcare crisis, where we were told he would never be normal. Now that was when he was 3. He's now 27. He's doing really well. And I remind him often that he is and was the catalyst for changing tens of thousands of individuals' lives. I would be doing something completely different had it not been for his health issues. So we really do get to, whoops, and I froze again. We really do get to the why behind things. And let's see what we're doing here. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yep, I can hear you fine. So you can keep talking, no problem.
Okay. So, all right. So we get to the why behind any healthcare mystery, if you will. We call ourselves disease detectives, and we move through untangling the threads to get to behind the root. It's not just the root. It's the elegant symphony of the body doing these really interesting things that aren't always what they appear to be. So you could have two very different symptoms rooted in the same situation. You could have two very similar symptoms rooted in totally different situations.
Right. And what's interesting about what you just said, and every time I talk to you, it just sparks another thought in my brain. You know, I've got 5 different people in my family. We all have different symptoms and different expressions, I should say, of ill health, whatever it is. You know, for me, it might be gut issues or a skin rash, which is something that I have experienced over the last 9 months, and it comes and goes. And then my husband will get headaches. And let's see, let me think here. Terry's video is still frozen. I don't know. Terry, I still can hear you. So okay. I think we'll just go on because sound is more important anyway. And hopefully the camera gets back to us. But what has happened with my skin is it will go and it will come. And I first thought it was oxalates. Well, the oxalates, as I've heard you talk about, can also then have a relationship with mold in our food supply. So is the mold interplaying with the oxalates, and that is causing the expression of the rash coming in and out. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but, you know, and then also you take in the environmental aspect, and right now we are being exposed to more radiation than humans have ever been exposed to. We're also exposed to more viral exposure, essentially, as we're entering fall and the winter months. That's going to increase, and the molds and things like that are going to increase, the allergies, that sort of thing. So the interplay of them is going to express itself in me in a different way that it might in, say, my husband, who suffers from headaches. So there we go.
Sorry, it totally froze. So you were talking about the heavy metal, the toxicity, the environment, the season, mold, and oxalates. And I just want to make sure I lost you for a little bit.
Yes.
I didn't lose anything.
No, exactly. And so what I was seeing in myself was, okay, maybe it's all oxalate dumping. Well, does that mean that I take all the oxalates out of my diet, or I leave a little bit because I know you're not supposed to go from 100 to 0 when you dump the oxalates? Or was it the oxalates interplaying with the fungus that's now present maybe in my environment, and that's making it worse? And then I just a little fact, went to Utah for Parents Weekend to see Jackson, and had to fly. I was in a football stadium with 60,000 people. I was in the, around restaurants and people, and you've got exposure. And right now we've got more viral and bug exposure that we're getting to. So the interplay of it was too much. And then you add in the fact that I was eating out at restaurants and maybe not eating 100% what I'm supposed to, and it hit the tipping point. So I gave you a lot there.
Okay, so let's tease that out. So season of the year is really important when you're dealing with an oxalate burden. So first, let's just define for your audience, what are oxalates? Well, oxalates are, it's a plant defense mechanism found in healthy foods such as almonds, black beans, berries. We have spinach, parsley, we have beets, and it goes on and on. So these are meant to protect the plant, but we are not now able to break those down fully. And if you have a genetic predisposition like you and I, Sarah, where we are oxalate sensitive, we're going to be more likely to have to manage this oxalate burden. So just in and of itself, the foods create an oxalate. The oxalate creates crystals. The crystals can create joint pain. The crystals can create help facilitate Meniere's disease or tinnitus. It has to do with mental health issues. It can feed all sorts of joint and autoimmune conditions, ulcerative colitis and IBS and Crohn's linked to impaired oxalate metabolism. But it's a layered approach. And that's why the Cochrane method looks to the entire landscape of the why and the when, right? Because during different times of the season, and even during different times of our own cycling as women, in particular, as we men's, we're going to have different biochemistry occurring within us. So why are oxalates related to mold? Well, these oxalate crystals, they feed on aspergillus, which is mold. And when we're in the Metro DC area, the leaves are starting to change and fall. As the leaves fall, the mold rises, right? So you have an external or exogenous environment that will make the oxalates more robust in our body. And we have, we're all virally living in a world of viral melee, right? And so what we know is, at least in the herpes family of viruses, that the biofilm that holds the mold will actually help activate viral loads. And the activated viral loads will help create biofilm, which feeds the mold, which feeds the oxalate burden. So it is this tipping point, right? So it's not just one thing. It's what are all the things? How is your environment? Where are you seasonally? How is your not only external environment, but internal environment? If you've had a leak in your bathroom and all of a sudden you feel like you can't think, or you're getting a lot of joint pain, or you're getting rashes, that oxalate rash, look to the water leak creating mold spores in your air, tripping that mechanism.
So let's say I'm eating exactly what I'm supposed to eat, the same amount of oxalates that I was before, and everything's the same, and I have the same condition with my mold, that nothing's changed there. But all of a sudden I'm exposed to a viral load. That could be the tipping point. Absolutely. Or the viral load stays the same, the oxalate stays the same, and there's more mold. That could be the tipping point with this chain reaction.
It is a chain reaction. I call it the ping pong effect, right? And then also viruses feed, what we've learned, and through my practice and all of the anecdotal evidence, but also what's in the clinical literature, is that these truncated protein structures coming from chicken, beef, pork, and turkey, chicken being the dirtiest of the lot, called now the dirty bird, really helps to fortify those viral loads that are within us that are leaving us alone. So for example, by the time we're 40, over 90% of us have been exposed to the Epstein-Barr virus. That's mono. Even if we didn't have mono as a high schooler or beyond, it doesn't mean that we weren't exposed to it. And so, for example, I have never had mononucleosis. I know at 16, I was exposed to it by a really good friend of mine. Now, when I look at my my history and trajectory of my whole health journey, 4 years ago, I became very ill with a total viral reactivation based on stress. And so that my my Epstein-Barr virus was through the roof. It wasn't a new viral activation. It was a viral reactivation, right? So that last element of the symphony of, oh my gosh, here's the domino effect, could actually be stress.
And to touch on that, my daughter, as you know, she has gone up and down with Epstein-Barr, where it expresses itself and then it's okay, and it expresses itself. And at the beginning of the school year, her coach decided that it would be a good idea to have double workouts. Now, mind you, season doesn't really even start till January to spring, and he's already putting that pressure on her. And I wanted to give him a few words of my own, but I stayed back and I just told her, I said, look, we know you've gone through 2 cycles of this where you get exhausted, you get adrenal burnout, your immune compromised, your stress levels high, and your Epstein-Barr flares up. You get blurry-eyed, you get headaches, and you get all the symptoms. I'm not going to do anything about it or tell you what to do. You are an adult now, and you are in charge of you. But that was another just example of just stress triggering the viral load and the expression of these things if the immune system is compromised.
Absolutely. And Sarah, you'll be interested to know that as we apply further research to the building of the model of the Cochrane method, we actually found a specific gene that can reactivate Epstein-Barr.
Wow.
So we have a gene it's a BH something gene, and I'll give it to your listening audience afterwards if you like, but it literally speaks to the reactivation of Epstein-Barr. So it's the stress that reactivates the gene that reactivates the Epstein-Barr.
Amazing.
Fascinating.
Well, I know that you and I both are very adamant and passionate about keeping our insulin levels down and blood sugar. And that could be different for every person, right? I mean, one of my children actually can have a ton more sugar than I can, and their insulin and blood sugar stays at a different level. But in general, high insulin and disease are connected. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, insulin is considered the linchpin in metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome was a constellation of symptomology coined at Stanford University in the late 80s. And so metabolic syndrome is defined as high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol. And those are the killer diseases, right? Heart disease is our number 1 killer in the United States. We've got diabetes. 1 in 4 by the year 2020 will become diabetic unless we turn this boat around. So 1 in 2 of us are affected with high blood pressure. 90% of adults have had high blood pressure. It's just enormous. The statistics are enormous. And at the root of this is insulin insensitivity. And so why is insulin such a big bad boy? Insulin is a highly inflammatory hormone when it's not properly regulated. And just recently, I'm a medical advisor for a longevity group, and David Sinclair, who's a geneticist out of Harvard, his whole thing is, hey guys, everybody should manage their insulin. It's one of the biggest factors for longevity. Insulin insensitivity is such a dirty hormone because one, it's the fat storage hormone. So if we're insulin dysregulated, we're going to store more fat. We know, to your toxicity statement earlier, we store toxins in our adipose tissue, our fatty tissue.
Right.
So if we're insulin insensitive, we're going to store toxins in our fatty tissue. At my staff meeting today, I was reminding our staff that, hey guys, you have almost a 70% higher chance of mortality with cancer when you are overweight, when you are obese. That means you have a lot of fat. That means that insulin is stored in the fat because most obese people are insulin insensitive. And if we look at mortality and morbidity just overall in autoimmunity, you look to the obese. And so insulin creates fat. Insulin and fat is also cholesterol, right? So when we are insulin insensitive, Harvard came out with a study several years ago that said, hey guys, the thing behind our heart disease is not really cholesterol. It's the insulin that is the fat storage hormone that's making the cholesterol sticky, right? So not all cholesterol is bad. If you have happy floating cholesterol, you can have a cholesterol of 300 and be super safe. You can have a cholesterol of 150 with sticky cholesterol with lipoprotein structure that's sticky because you're insulin insensitive, and you're going to be a much higher risk. So the numbers don't tell the whole story. And so we also know that, guess what? Insulin, when you're insulin dysregulated, your blood sugar is going to be off. When your blood sugar is off, you're going to potentially be either initially you're hypoglycemic, meaning that your blood sugar drops when you're releasing a bunch of insulin, right? When you go hypoglycemic, then the body goes, uh-oh, I'm going to pass out because my blood sugar just dropped to 60. When that happens, then your body goes, I need some fast acting sugar. So it's either going to release glycogen, stored sugar, or it can release epinephrine. Well, epinephrine, I call the dirty cupcake. That's a stress hormone because the body's under stress because it's hypoglycemic. So now what have we done? We've just released a stress bomb, potentially reactivating all these pathogens, which then feed on the fat to make the biofilm. So when you think about the trajectory of why insulin is such a big deal, it's a big deal. And when you become diabetic, then it actually, when you have high blood sugar and high blood insulin, it's double whammy because now you can't get your sugar regulated because that insulin that's pushed doesn't even get into the cells, and your blood sugar stays high and your insulin stays high. And over time, diabetes can lead to organ failure. So it just is such a bad boy because of all of the downstream impacts for insulin. So just, to summarize, obesity kills. Okay. 2/3 of the American population are considered morbidly obese. Okay. Diabetes, 1 in 4 will become diabetic by the year 2020. We spend just on the diabetic medication a year over $10,000 per person per year just to manage the insulin. All right. It's highly inflammatory. It's been linked to heart disease, which is the #1 killer. Okay. Insulin is a fat storage hormone, which then creates potentially a fat burden that then increases the cholesterol, again, back to heart attack, but also increases the potential biofilm formation, which then trip our pathogenic loads, which we know lead to autoimmunity. So it really does have a massive impact on who we are. And food is at the root of it, food and stress.
Food and stress and toxicity. But the other point I wanted to amplify here is that for diabetics, then we start shooting them up with more insulin, which is literally killing them.
Yes.
Like it is killing them. And through my cleanse, through the Ascent Diet Cleanse, I've been getting people off of their insulin, and they are wondering why all of a sudden it's easy to lose weight. Well, right? Because you're not shooting yourself with a hormone that tells your body to store fat. One thing that I didn't understand, and maybe you can describe this again, is that the viral load uses fat to create the biofilm. Is that correct?
Yes. Any kind of fat formation in the body is fodder for viral protection and pathogen. It's not just viral, but bacterial and fungal, because biofilm is effectively a lipid layer. Lipid is a fat. Insulin is a fat. There's the connection.
Gotcha. And you talk about all of these metabolic diseases. They usually don't come just by themselves. When you have heart disease, you're typically type 2 diabetic, you typically are obese, and they all are connected. So when you start rolling things back, regaining insulin sensitivity, they tend to, reverse in all of them, right? It's not needing one heart or blood pressure medication or insulin for diabetes or whatever it is for your weight gain that you need to now reverse. They're all connected, and that's where people need to realize that you address the problem and the symptoms go away.
Absolutely. And actually, we're doing case studies, and just last week we were looking at a gentleman who was 66 years old who had been on metformin for over 20 years, on blood pressure medication for over 30, and on cholesterol medication for almost 30 as well. His hemoglobin A1C was over 7, even with all of his, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetic medication. He had stenosis. He walked in with a walker. He was overweight. His joints were crushing. They're being crushed. Within 3 months, he was no longer diabetic. He had normal blood pressure. He had normal cholesterol and no medication. And he had lost 20 pounds. And instead of walking in with a walker, he walked in having just come from the gym. So his name, we love him. And I said, you should be on the cover, Jeff, on the cover of Sports Illustrated Platinum version, because you have literally reversed your aging multiple fold. And you're no longer a burden to the healthcare system because you're no longer on these meds.
Right. It's amazing. Well, I want to take a little break here. We're going to take a commercial break and come back and talk about how an anti-inflammatory diet fits in here and what we do now. We are into October, starting the end of this week, with fall and winter coming up, and to boost our immune system. So we'll take a quick commercial break and be right back with Terry Cochran. Welcome back to Accelerated Health Radio and TV. We're here with Terry Cochran talking all about how to boost our immune system and our immune function through an anti-inflammatory diet, and how everything is kind of in interplay. It's not just one thing. Wouldn't we all love just one pill, Terry, right? To fix all of us.
Yeah.
But now we're getting into fall. So let's talk about the extra exposure. I've been really focused lately on the extra exposure to radiation and toxicity in our environment in general, the extra viral load we are all being exposed to, regardless of who you are.
Right.
We are all being exposed. And like I mentioned, I was in a football stadium with 60,000 people. Most people weren't wearing masks, whether they were or not, and we're out to restaurants, and the seasons are changing. There's an increase in mold, and there's an increase in 5G towers, smart meters. We're on Zoom right now. I've got my cell phone to my left. So we've got all of these things that we're trying to combat. What do we do?
So great question. That's the $64,000 question, as they used to say. And ultimately, the way to navigate this is to reduce two major things: reduce our toxic burden by that which we can control. Okay. And then we increase our immune system and our thinking by that which we can control. So let's look at the reducing the toxic burden. Just as you mentioned, we're on Zoom, we've got 5G, we are a high power network of human beings connected through this whole 5G environment. Now, not all of us are going to buy black curtains and go, although some people are, and going to go, off the grid and so forth. So what we have to do is go around and see what else in my environment is toxic that I actually have control over. Okay, so let's look at the cleaning products that I have in my home. Are they toxic? Let's look at the products, the cleaning products that I put on my skin. Are they a toxic burden? Let's look at how I hold my water. I mean, I do recycled jars, no plastics. Let's look at the plastics, the parabens, the microwaves. So reducing every time we say no to a plastic or a toxin that we can control, it gives us more space in our liver to manage the other elements of toxic burdens. Okay, so let's look at our water supply. Am I drinking from the faucet? Am I drinking reverse osmosis? Does it have VOCs? Does it have heavy metals? Can I control it? Water is a big deal. Does it have, because we've got so much coming in through that water supply. Eagle Springs I love because although I like reverse osmosis, it takes 3 gallons to make 1 gallon. So that's not green. And water is becoming a very precious resource on our planet. So I really like the Eagle Springs filtration, and I like the Berkey for my shower heads. So I try to get as much clean water as possible. Toxic burden. Your cleanses reduces the toxic burden. We have to love our liver. Our liver is our largest detoxifying organ, followed by the kidneys, the gut, and the skin. And then the lymphatic system is super important. So how do we reduce our toxic burden? We have to move. So our lymph can move with us. Why? Because guess what lymph holds? It holds bacteria and viruses and moves them out. So if we're not moving, they're not moving. So movement is really, really important. The toxic thoughts. When we have toxic thoughts, we lower our immune system by 50% for up to 5 hours. A 50% margin, not 15, 5-0. So if I'm having a really rough day, which means, and it doesn't mean that we can't have a rough day. And of course, we're under the cloak of uncertainty and when's the next shoe going to drop on many levels on our planet, right? We're surrounded by variants that keep varying. And just when we think we have it figured out, something else happens, right? So we're going to be in this. This is not a short term. This is like, how do we manage a long-term play in an ever-changing environment? The best way to do it is the calming effect. Not to say that we should be Pollyannish and say, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wear these rose-colored glasses and it's not going to, I'm not going to be affected. No, we have to be very smart, very pragmatic, very intentional, but not full of fear. And that's a practice, right? And I call this the practice of the practice. What am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? Are we going to be perfect? No. Sometimes, and I call it being crunchy. Are things really crunchy today? Sometimes I had a crunchy weekend. It was a pretty crunchy weekend. But you know what? Every day is a new day and you get up and you move through it, right? So as you move through things, it doesn't stay with you. And so you can modulate the immune system. Super important. Every level, right? You have to love the liver. The liver, I juice every morning. I control my liver with a green juice that meets my genetic blueprint. If I were to do a green juice with killer kale and spinach, I would really be in joint pain and my brain would stop thinking. I do a juice because I have an oxalate and a sulfur burden in my body. I've got those gene tendencies. I do a juice with cucumber and cilantro and my wild lights and vitamin C and some collagen, fish collagen. So I do that every morning. I get up out of bed and I start drinking that before I walk out the door to go on my run. So, and then I move. So I move every morning or try to move 5 days a week. Either I'm running or I'm doing yoga, but I try to run 5 days a week because that's my walking meditation. I call that meditation in action, and meditation is key. And we know that the HeartMath Institute and the work of Joe Dispenza has shown, hey guys, when we're in meditative state, we raise our frequency. When we raise our frequency, we're going to be more robust immunologically. So how do we raise our immune system? Okay, guess what? Not everything that's supposed to be intended for your immune system is immunologically matching you. So today we had a client who was eating all the wrong foods. She is so swollen. She actually, this is true. This is the first time she's in my practice. She has 3 sizes of the same clothes in her closet because the burden of swelling is so enormous that that's the only way she can be dressed. That's not the way we should live our lives. And we found out that she had gene predispositions for the CYP2D60. And I know I'm saying a lot of letters and numbers. Basically, turmeric was kicking her butt and making her swell like a porcupine. Okay, she also had a sulfur burden and she knew broccoli was hurting her, but she didn't know garlic was hurting her. She also had an oxalate burden. So she didn't know that berry almond spinach smoothie that she was eating every day was like puffing her up like a blowfish. So that was reducing her immune system function. So look to the foods that match the blueprint, and then also the supplements. So turmeric has become a very, very popular supplement. And they say this is a great antioxidant. This is a great liver detoxifier. Well, hey folks, not if you have that genetic predisposition. How do you know? You take a test, right? Glutathione. Glutathione is a high sulfur compound, also touted as being detoxifying. Well, for me, it's a retox. I can't detox with glutathione, especially if there's an over-innervated nervous system. Mushrooms, right? So let's talk about mold. So there's all these therapeutic mushrooms that are, being touted on the market as immune builders. Ain't gonna happen if you've got a lot of mold in your system. You don't feed mold with mold. So we go away. So these are things we can control, but we don't know we can't control them if we're not versed in them. So we have to understand those big the big rocks, right? Those big food sources that are being touted as take this every day because it's good for you. Fermented and sprouted foods, right? We've got, take kombucha and kimchi and sauerkraut. Well, not if you're sprouting on the inside. Right? So the foods are really important. They're actually going to be counter to immune support. They're going to be immune destabilizers.
Yeah. And I can tell you, Terry, just as a personal aside, I was drinking fresh squeezed turmeric all day long because it's an anti-inflammatory. It's really good for joint health. That was my downfall. And I think that was why I am having such a big issue with oxalate dumping. I actually was experiencing renal colic, where I was thinking, oh my gosh, is this a hormonal PMS pain, or is this pulled muscle pain? I had never felt it in my life, but I can tell you, everyone, I've had 3 children birthing. This pain was worse than going through labor and delivery. And once it passed, all the pain just went away. Yeah. So that was a symptom of the oxalate dumping. And
absolutely. And turmeric is a huge oxalate. So
yeah,
there you go. And having that gene, and also, so in your case, Sarah, and in my case, not only is it an oxalate, but it can slow phase 1 liver detoxification by up to 50% with that CYP2D6 genetic polymorphism. We lose half of our detoxification capacity with that one ingredient. Holy moly, that's a problem.
Right. And our thoughts are that we are detoxing in the proper way and helping our liver. Right. So
yes. And so what we're told by many practitioners, because they believe it's healthy, it's like, well, just drink more. Just take more. You need more detoxification. Your liver's not detoxing. Take more of that turmeric tea. No.
Right. No. So I want to go through, because we've got a few more minutes. I do my diet, which I really focus on the healthy wild proteins that you have touted for so long. Bison, my body just loves bison and lamb. It literally just soaks it all up. If I have even grass-fed beef, which is healthy, it's okay, but I get stopped up a little bit. Wild fish is good, not too much. And then it's the vegetables, though. Even when I came home from my weekend where my body said, oh my gosh, what did you just do to me? My stomach was distended. There was inflammation in my intestines. I could feel it. I just went to almost a carnivore-ish 2 days in a row because I just needed the vegetables out, even the ones that work for me. But then I also have clients that are vegans. So can you do this on a vegan diet?
Absolutely. And we just had a question come in saying, what are foods to reduce mold? Okay. So, would you like me to answer that?
Yes, I do. Yes.
So foods that reduce mold are those that are emulsifiers. So mold is back to that biofilm, which is a lipid layer. A lipid is a fat. So we've got to break down the fat, right? So it's hard to get into, I call like candida as a big fungus, right? But it's like a jelly donut. It's protected by this moat of lipid, which is biofilm. So you've got to break down the biofilm to get to the middle, right? So then you can actually attack that organism. And so we love bile salts. Taurine is really good because it's a bile emulsifier. Plus, it also helps with dopamine. It helps to shunt the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, meaning that it takes you down from a state of stress. Glycine is also really important because glycine helps produce hydrochloric acid. So the acid is also lemon and lime. If you don't have other issues, could be a good emulsifier. But what's a mold buster from let's just say a botanical perspective? All right. We like grapefruit seed extract. That's great for mold. We like cat's claw. That's great for mold. We like berberine. Berberine is tremendous for mold. It's great for strep and helps to regulate insulin. So it's a trifecta that helps modulate kidney function. It helps with gut probiotics. Also in a mold environment, sometimes probiotics don't work. So especially if you have a high histamine. So mold and histamine go together. So don't eat a lot of high histamine foods such as yogurt. Yogurt's bad. It's a high histamine food. But those mold busters, for example, nettle tea, you could even do that as a tea. It's a mold buster. We have basil. Basil's an antimicrobial. So even simple herbs not turmeric, if you have that gene, it could be really helpful, but it could be not helpful. So mold busters tend to be emulsifiers, and they break down the mold through the botanicals of berberine, cat's claw. Undoleic acid is really good. Thorn has SF722. If you're not otherwise super fat Malozor, that has a little bit, that is a fat to break down a fat, but those are all really good. All right. And so, Sarah, your question
about, is there a way to be a vegan on this diet?
Absolutely. But we have to be an informed vegan. So what probably happened to you where you had to go pure carnivore is that you hit a fiber tipping point. Fiber, what is fiber for? It helps. You're welcome. What is fiber for? It helps to make the colon move, but it irritates the colon. So when you got to an irritated state, that's a problem. What is the difference? So you can be a vegan even with you, but what we need to bring to you is soluble fiber versus insoluble fiber. So insoluble fiber is that fiber that will not break down in the colon. That's like psyllium husk, apple pectin. The crucifers are insoluble. What's a soluble fiber? And the skins on our vegetables, right? Soluble fiber is that yummy sweet potato. Without the skin, it's pumpkin, right? So we need the squashes that are soluble, meaning that they will break down. And also we need the orange vegetables as a vegan, especially if you were irritated in the colon. Why is that important? Because those orange vegetables are really rich in beta carotene. Beta carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. Vitamin A helps heal the lining of the stomach. So, we can do those things. We need things that are nice and gooey, right? So mastic gum, which is a tree resin, is really, really good. But yes, you can be a vegan and eat the right beans that aren't going to be moldy. We don't like green beans or green peas. Those exacerbate mold, but we do like pintos. And, if you have a burden with the pinto beans because of the fiber, you puree them. So you would have a pureed pinto with some long grain brown rice, not short grain, because again, you're going to have the chubby little short grain has more fiber. The long grain has less fiber. And then you would do it with like a pumpkin or a sweet potato. And that's a very gentle food where you're not actually doing the lettuces and the greens right now, because that's going to create peristalsis, and that is insoluble. So clearly a way to be vegan and navigate through this as a wilditarian.
And what protein do you use?
So the protein, if you're a vegan, is a protein person. So again, stay away from the pea protein, folks, if you have a mold issue. Okay. Pea protein is a mycotoxin. If you're a vegan, you could do brown rice protein. You could do watermelon seed protein. You could do sunflower seed protein. You could do pumpkin seed protein. So the seed proteins, I know Joe Mercola says no seeds because that's that's an omega-6 and it's not the right thing. But I think watermelon seed is really, really safe. And you can also do that plant-based protein that's non-mycotoxic, feeding the mold, therefore the cascading event. And brown rice is very safe.
Okay. Now, in the last couple minutes, I know that you have started to incorporate GABA and serapeptase in your protocols. Can you talk about the benefits of those?
Yes. So let's go to GABA. And this is back to the insulin insensitivity and glycogen and hypoglycemia, because again, when you first push that insulin, you're going to go be hypoglycemic. So GABA is typically thought of as a calmative neurotransmitter, but guess what, folks? The second place for GABA concentration is in the islet cells of the pancreas. So GABA really helps to manage and regulate that insulin response, the glycogen response, the glucagon response. All it has to do, I know those are big words, but it has to do with blood sugar regulation, really important. Also, what's really important with GABA is it helps manage estrogen. And so when we get into a high insulin situation, much like polycystic ovarian syndrome, we also go high estrogen. And it helps to modulate that. So it calms the system and it helps really, so it's anti-inflammatory, right? Another thing that I love is serrapeptase. Serrapeptase is a proteolytic enzyme. Proteolytic enzymes eat inflammation. Many football players actually will use proteolytic enzymes when they're getting beat up on the, on the track, not the track, whatever it's called, the field. Thank you. When they're getting beat up on the field and they're really swollen. So proteolytic enzymes reduce inflammation. Proteolytic enzymes are little Pac-Men to proteins as well, right? Indigestible proteins. They help reduce scar tissue. They help modulate other proteins, right? And we know that pathogens feed on proteins. So it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. And as a matter of fact, my patient Zero Wilditarian, who was really ill with an end-stage cancer, he had amyloidosis, which are these truncated protein structures. Part of our protocol with him was to put him on a proteolytic enzyme therapy, and serrapeptase in particular, to manage that overburden of protein. And so we know that pathogens feed on protein, all sorts of pathogens, bacterial, viral, parasitic, fungal, because again, of that ping pong effect. So it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. So this helps then relate to the insulin. The GABA and the serrapeptase are really wonderful when you match it with my Wild Lights, which I really love, because we need to keep our livers clear and keep our electrolytes working so we can think and we can communicate on a cellular level. Those three are really big winners. I'm really recommending it, unless you're on gabapentin or you're on some other really significant psychotropics. It's a really great, GABA is wonderful, and serrapeptase, unless you have a bleeding ulcer, because enzymes do break things down, it's very safe. And I'm like the princess in the pea, and I can barely take things, and I take those, very, very easily without any consequence.
And I have to say, I take all of them, the GABA and the serrapeptase and the Wild Lights, every single day. And I recommend them for my clients as well. They are all found at Accelerated Health Products too, as well, as if anyone needs them. Well, right before we go, Terry, can you tell everybody where they can find you and about your book? Because it is definitely one that people need to read, just to have in the back of their mind all of these things that we're talking about.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. You can find my book on Amazon. It's The Wilditarian Diet, Living as Nature Intended. We have hardcover and we have it on Kindle. In terms of finding us, terrycochran.com or the Global Sustainable Health Institute. That really is taking my methods one to many. And we're really proud of that initiative. So we're on all over social media, and really grateful for Sarah's work. I think she's got the best silver on the planet. She's got some of the best detoxifiers, and zeolite, also these binders, which are really important for the biofilm. So we love Accelerated to use a lot of your products as well. So happy to be cross-pollinating with these intelligent supplements and approaches to a better immune system, and then a better quality of life.
Well, I'm so grateful for you. You truly have changed my life and got me thinking at a higher level about my own individualized nutrition, and also to be able to troubleshoot for my clients. And, step one is to get everyone's insulin regulated, get the toxins out and the nutrition in, take away that top layer, and then dive into the more individualized issues if people's symptoms aren't going away. So Terry, that's where I'm so grateful for you. And I send my clients to you. I just wish there were 100 of you and not just one.
We're trying to get there.
Good. Well, hopefully I'll be one of them eventually. So, Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And thank you, Terry. And you can contact me if you have any health issues or if you are interested in the Accelerated Ascent Cleanse. We start the first Monday of every month. You can comment below or just email me directly at sarah@acceleratedhealthproducts.com. You can find this episode and all of my episodes on YouTube, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, and over 100 channels wherever you find your podcasts. And if you like what you hear today, please comment below and hit the subscribe button and share with a few others that may need my help and Terry's help. You can join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time and would love to have you here. You can also use coupon W4HC20 for 20% off site-wide at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you, Terry. Have a great week.